Hi everyone. So in this video, we will see what is cloud computing. We will deep dive into the world of cloud computing and how on-demand access to server, storage, database are transforming the way companies build and scale technology. We will also see the core idea behind cloud computing, IaaS services, PaaS services, and why all companies are moving to the cloud. And in this video, I will give you some practical tips to getting started with your own cloud project. So let's start. So first question is, what is cloud computing? So cloud computing means you are hosting your application on cloud. So to explain this in a very simple term, let's understand you have built one application. It can be anything, a web application or any kind of software. Now you want to deploy that application in such a way so that all your users can utilize your application over the internet. So let's say you want to deploy this application. For that, you need some computing power, resources, server, and database and networking architecture. So before cloud computing, you need to create one server room, purchase all those hardware like servers and all, and then set up your entire application on that server room. And then you can deploy your application so that everyone can utilize your application. So this is the history before cloud computing, but it takes time and it requires a lot of money, maintenance and all. But after cloud computing, you don't need to do all those manual stuff. You can just deploy entire your application on cloud using pay as per services, and then you don't need to maintain and purchase all those hardware. Everything is available on the cloud virtually. So that is cloud computing. So as of now, large IT companies follow the traditional method to provide the IT infrastructure. That means for any IT company, we need a server room. That is basic need of IT companies. So in that particular server room, there are multiple things like routers, modems, switches, QPS, load balancer. So, and one more important thing is high speed internet. So these are hardware related parts that you need to purchase and set up in your server room. And to establish such IT infrastructure, we need to spend lot of money to overcome all these problems and to reduce the IT infrastructure cost. Cloud computing comes into the existence. So cloud computing is basically pay as you go service that provides on demand of IT resources over the internet. So you can whatever resource you want, for example, a database service or a EC2 instance service or any kind of machine service, you can host that on particular cloud services. So cloud computing is the use of internet to gain access to the computer resources such as application, servers, both portable, virtual, data storage, development tools, communication capabilities. There are n number of services that you can purchase from cloud provider, and then you can purchase those services based on monthly membership price or an use gauge based payment plan. So basically you need to pay only based on your use gauge. So if you are not using that particular service, you don't need to pay anything. So instead of buying, owning and maintaining the physical data center, that data center is nothing but a server room which has lots of hardware. So you can access all those technology services such as computing power, storage and database as needed basis from a cloud provider like Amazon Web Services. So there are multiple cloud providers, for example, AWS, GCP, Azure. So AWS and all those cloud provider provided these services as pay as per model. So you can host all the services virtually. Cloud computing transforms IT infrastructure into a utility. It lets you plug into infrastructure via the internet and use the computing resources without installing and maintaining them on premises. So in your office, you don't need to set up anything, not even a server room. You can just deploy everything on internet using those services. So that's why it's plug and play. Moving to the cloud, running in the cloud, stored in the cloud, accessing from the cloud. These days, it seems like everything is happening in the cloud. So whatever we do, like if you want to build your application using some Python code or any kind of programming languages, you can build entire application on cloud service. then you can deploy that application as well on cloud services. You can maintain, debug, test, everything is happening on cloud. But it is not actual cloud, it is just a term that we use. But in reality, cloud is nothing but a one service provider is giving you a services. So that service provider has entire setup in their data center. So we are just renting those services from the service provider. That is actually a cloud term. So the cloud is a big deal for three reasons. First, it does not require any effort on your part to maintain or manage it. So let's say if I build a server room for my application, then I have to maintain, manage, and see everything related to that service center. Like I need to buy lots of hardware as well as software, and I need to set up few people so that they can look into those technical part. So if I deploy everything on cloud, all those stuffs will be gone. Like I don't have to do maintain, manage, and purchase. So there is no worry about running out of capacity as it is in infinite size. So let's say if I build one application in my server room and I'm deploying on that my server room only, after a particular duration, if the demand is very high, so that particular server or whatever hardware I have purchased will not support that demand. So in that case, I need to scale up my hardware. So again, purchase new servers, database servers, machines and all, because of high demand. And if after a certain time, if the demand is low, then I cannot resell those services. So that's why if you just deploy everything on cloud, in later on, if your like demand is increases, then you can just scale up your model virtually, and you can scale down your model virtually as well. Like it is an infinite size, so you don't need to worry about the out of capacity. So you can access cloud based application and services anywhere and anytime. All you need to have is a device with an internet connection, because at the end you are deploying your application on World Wide Web, so everyone can access your application using internet. That's why it is called cloud computing. So characteristics of cloud computing. So main is agility. The cloud works in a distributed computing environment. It shares resources among users and works very fast. So distributed means all the components are set up on different servers and environments. High availability and reliability. So availability of server is high and more reliable because of the chances of infrastructure failures are minimum. Let's take an example. You have deployed your application on one server. Because of some issue, if that server goes down, then instantly another server will go live. That is the architecture cloud services provided. So you don't need to worry about the server failure and all, because if anything goes down, a backup server will take place of that particular services. High scalability. So cloud offers on-demand provisioning of resources on large scale without having engineers for peak load. So let's say if your application require a lot of servers or example computing power, because of the high demand, it can automatically scale up that application. Then multi-sharing. With the help of cloud computing, multiple users and application can work more efficiently with cost reduction by sharing common infrastructure. So multiple people can work on one simple architecture, like one setup. Then device and location independence. Obviously, like you have deployed your entire web application on cloud services, so there is no restriction related to location part. So cloud computing enables the user to access system using web browser regardless of their location or what devices they are using. For example, the web application is running on cloud, so you can access that particular application using mobile, laptop, tablet, or you can access that using your TV also, because nowadays TV also has Chrome browser. So it does not require a strong hardware on the user side. You just need to have a browser with internet connection, then you can access those particular websites. Then maintenance. So you are not setting up any particular servers or server room on premises, so you don't need to maintain anything. Everything will be maintained on the service provider sides. Then low cost. Obviously, you are not buying any particular hardware, so you just need to pay based on what services you are using and how much you are using that. So it will be at very low cost. So by using a cloud computing, the cost will be reduced because to take the services of cloud computing, IT company need not to set its own infrastructure as infrastructure and pay as per usage of resources. Then services in the pay per use model. So there are a lot of services that we need to use. For example, security services to secure our application, then storage services to save files on our application, and let's say some machine learning models, pre-built machine learning model. So you can use their APIs to directly integrate with your application. So you can pay some amount and then you can integrate those pre-trained model APIs with your machine learning model based on this particular services. So before learning cloud computing, you must need to have a basic computer fundamentals knowledge. For example, you need to know what is client architecture, what is server architecture, and how client and server interact with each other, how you can scale up the server part, what is load balancing, what is request and response, how these two things are communicated with each other, what is metadata. So the basic steps related to computer fundamental is must to have while learning the cloud computing. So who is using cloud computing nowadays? So if you see almost all the industries or all the domains, everywhere cloud computing is useful. Software development and testing, like you can use Google Colab to develop any software and you can test that. Then big data analytics is also happening on cloud only. So big data is nothing but a large amount of data. So almost all the IT companies or non-IT companies also have data in their digital format, and that data is in huge for like format, like huge size. So big data comes into the picture. So that is also happening on the cloud. Customer facing web apps, so for example Google Chrome, netflix.com, those are customer facing web application. Like you don't need to install anything, you can just enter the URL and you can able to access that web application. Then data backup like Google Drive, that is also cloud computing. Then disaster recovery. So disaster recovery has multiple application. For example, your contacts and photos backup. So if your phone got stolen or anything technical issue happening with your phone, then you can recover all your data from your cloud account. Then email services nowadays everyone use, that is also cloud computing part. And then virtual desktop. So for virtual desktop is nothing but a virtual computer. For example, I have Mac OS and I want to run Windows application. So I can just host virtual desktop on cloud computing and I can utilize Windows machine on my Mac OS, similar to Linux also. So that is called virtual desktop. So nowadays, almost all the organization or all the domains are using cloud computing. For example, healthcare businesses are also using a cloud computing. You may have experienced that if you go to some specialist doctor, they are using some software to maintain the patient's record. That is again happening on cloud, like they can store the patient's records on a centralized system. Then financial services firms uses the cloud to detect and prevent fraud in real time. So SEBI, a government body which handles the stock market, is also using a cloud to identify and detect the frauds on stock market. Then in addition to video game developers are utilizing the cloud to provide online games to millions of gamers all over the world. For example, PUBG. Nowadays, it is a very popular game that is also happening on cloud. So in almost all the industries, clouds are very common and it is utilizing to the fullest. So there are many well-known organizations across the world that migrated to the cloud environment, which are Pinterest. So it uses AWS cloud environment to manage multiple petabytes of data. Then Spotify uses AWS cloud environment to store its vast repository of songs. Then Netflix is also utilize AWS to store and stream its media content. And then Expedia. So these are just few names, but there are n number of companies which are migrated to the cloud for their services. So this is what about a cloud computing. In next session, we will see the history of cloud computing, what are the advantages and disadvantages of cloud computing.